Hello everyone, welcome back to the Aqua-Tech Sales and Marketing YouTube channel. My name is Matthew Pottins, and today we're going to be talking about the indirect fired water heater and how we can pipe it, how we can control it, and how we can control our modulation while we're using an indirect water heater. So let's jump into the manual, take a look at the simulators on Lochinvar U, and hopefully you get something out of this and enjoy. This is the night boiler installation and operation manual, and we are under the hydronic piping section in that manual. And we can see here that we have a primary secondary arrangement with our indirect tank piped off of our boiler loop, which means that when our indirect tank calls for heat, our boiler pump stops and our indirect tank pump starts, thus bringing the heat over to the indirect tank to heat up the water. In our manual and in our parameters, this is called a normal operation, and the unit comes standard like this. But let's say, for example, we actually have a site, or we walk into conditions where we have our indirect tank piped off of our system, and in this case, this boiler has to compensate for the tire load of the system and the indirect tank. In our manual and in our parameters, this would be known as a zone operation, and we actually have to go into the parameters and change it so that this is so that the boiler understands that this is actually a zone operation. And let's say, for example, that we want to adjust this piping arrangement. We actually think that the original piping arrangement over here is more efficient, easier to service, etc., etc. Well, chances are that this boiler would have been large enough to compensate for the indirect tank plus all the zones. And if we change it to this operation, and it doesn't transfer heat into the system, but only transfers all of its BTUs into the indirect tank, well, we're going to short cycle this boiler. So what's unique about the Lochinvar product is that we can actually control the modulation of this boiler when it transfers its heat over to the indirect tank. So instead of sending 100% of our BTUs over to this indirect tank, we can actually say, you know what, let's send 50%. So let's say this boiler is 400,000 BTUs, but the indirect tank can only handle 200,000 BTUs. Well, now we can send that 200,000 BTUs and not worry about short cycling, or we can even send less depending on what the requirements of the building are. And I'll show you how to do that with our night simulator. In our night simulator, we can log into the settings by pushing and holding the menu button for 5 seconds, and our password screen will pop up. We'll input our password screen, push save, and then we can scroll down to the domestic hot water settings right there, push the dial in, and then we can go down to our indirect settings. So you can see here that we have indirect type, which is set to normal. We can change that to a zone, like I said. So if we want to change this, we can change this to a zone setting, and then we can also go back up here. Back up to fan speed. We can change that to whatever fan speed we want to change it to. So in a negative regulation gas arrangement for these high efficient products, the fan is what actually controls the modulation. So if we can cut down the fan speed by 50%, like I said previously, then we can only send 50% of our BTUs over to it. So, and that helps a lot with short cycling our product, and it saves the system, and it creates a more energy efficient system. So these are little things that we can do with our products and with the boilers, and rearranging our piping system to make it more economical, and something that we should all know about, and you wouldn't necessarily know it unless you watch the video. Thank you again for watching, and as always, please like, subscribe, and let me know if you want to see anything in particular. I hope everyone is learning a little bit more about Lochinvar from these videos, and you make use of a bunch of these settings and these parameters. Okay, thanks. Cheers.